Hello and welcome to Mindful Living, where we explore the art of living with the intention, balance, and inner peace. I am Avik, your host, guiding you through conversations on health, meditation, mental well being, mindfulness, and the mind body connection. Each episode features expert insights to help you grow, heal, and thrive. So, take a deep breath, relax, and join us on this journey to a more mindful and fulfilling life. So, let's get started.
Welcome back, mindful listeners, to another inspiring episode of the Mindful Living podcast. Today's episode is packed with purpose. Literally. We have a very special guest joining us today, Ian Chamandy, who has spent the last 20 years helping over 400 organizations and countless individuals define their unique purpose in life and business. Fun fact, all in just 7 words or less. Ian's groundbreaking blueprint process has transformed businesses, empowered leaders, and is now available for individuals as well to design their own purpose driven lives. And we are about to dive deep into how discovering your, in quotes, why can not only elevate your career, but also help you create a more mindful, intentional life. So grab a quick cup of tea, get cozy, and let's embark on this beautiful journey to purpose. Ian, welcome to the show, and it is an absolute honor to have you with us today.
I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Lovely, lovely. In your blueprint process for businesses, it's renowned for transforming organizations by defining their purpose in 7 words or less. How do you think individuals can apply this method to discover their personal purpose and live more mindfully? And I think it's going to be more complicated. So, what's your take on that?
Um, it's a little bit more complicated, maybe, but not really. It's doing the same thing, and
Okay.
I think part of the answer to your question is rooted in the definition of purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm glad, by the way, that in your intro you equated it to your why. Because if your listeners are familiar with Simon Sinek, right, he popularized the notion of knowing your why. Why do you exist? And your purpose and your why are the same thing. But trying to answer the question, why do I exist, is really, really, it's just too esoteric. And it presumes that there is a predetermined reason for you being born.
Mm-hmm.
And so I, Pablo Picasso, the painter,
Yeah.
uh, who knew he was also a famous philosopher as well, but he has this famous quote: "The meaning of life is to find your gift, and your purpose is to share it with the world." And
Wow.
I thought that was a really simple
Yeah.
little
Yes.
explanation of purpose, but I
Yes.
thought I'm going to simplify it even more.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, your purpose in life is to find your gift and share it with the world.
Hmm.
And I love that definition because it makes your purpose not something out there that you do, but it's something inside about you, something unique about you, your gift that you share with the world. And rather than saying your gift, I just articulate it as that one thing at your essence that makes you uniquely remarkable. So when you talked about me doing this, I've been doing this for companies for the past 20 years.
Mhm.
And it starts with defining the one thing that makes that company uniquely remarkable, and then having it guide everything, having what makes them uniquely remarkable guide everything that they do, all their operations and everything they say, all their communications. And I
Mhm.
just adapted that for an individual. but you're still doing the same thing. You're defining at your essence that one thing that makes you as a person uniquely remarkable. And I think most people
Mhm.
drift through their lives thinking there's nothing special about me. And therefore, I don't deserve anything special. And they may have perfectly fine lives,
Yeah.
but they don't aspire to more because this is who I am. This is what I'm capable of. Therefore, this is my lot in life. But if you define, if you figure out what your superpower is, if you define what makes you uniquely remarkable, in 7 words or less. That, as you said, that's our standard. You've
Mhm.
defined your superpower. You now know there is something special about you, and nobody can take that away from you ever.
Yeah. That is lovely, lovely, Ian. And you have worked with CEOs and leaders of major organizations. What do you think is the biggest barrier that holds people back from living a purpose-driven life? And how can mindfulness help them break through that?
Um, the biggest barrier to them not living a purpose-filled life
Hmm.
is not knowing their purpose, right?
Yep.
So I created this individual. I created a course. Define your purpose in 7 words or less, and then design a life of meaning and purpose. And that came out of the corporate service.
Mhm.
And oh gosh, I forgot where I was taking this. Can you remind me of the question?
Yeah, sure. Sure. As you have worked with organizations to help them define their purpose in 7 words or
Oh, the biggest barrier,
their
right?
biggest barrier, right?
So I created the individual version because when COVID hit, I got my coaching certification and I became a business coach. And in my first call with a prospect, he said, we were about 6 months into the pandemic. He said, the pandemic has got me rethinking my life. I don't like my career. I don't like where my life is going. I want to live a life of meaning and purpose. And I said, that's great. What's your purpose? And he said, I don't know. And that's when I took my corporate service and transformed it into an individual service so that I could then work with this guy and define his purpose and then coach him through the filter of his purpose. But the barrier to him not leading a purpose-filled life was that he didn't know his purpose and he didn't know how to figure that out.
Hmm.
And figuring it out is a really, really, really difficult thing in most circumstances.
Yep.
But my team and I, over the last 2.5 years, we've been developing this course and we figured out a way to simplify it. And so we take you through this step by step by step. I guide you in videos and a workbook and in tables that you work through and that sort of thing. But it stops being this big, oh, how do I find my purpose? To discovering other things about you. And I lead you through that process. And at the end of the discovering, and you do that with the assistance of AI because we've got our own proprietary AI called Wordsmith
Wow.
as your helper.
Wow.
So it's right there every step of the way, no matter what you're doing. You can click on a button and you can have Wordsmith help you. And so what we do is we break a bunch of big issues down into little pieces,
Mhm.
and then we use those little pieces in Wordsmith to help us come up with your purpose statement in 7 words or less. But you have to know the components of it first, the components of purpose. So that's what my course does, is it helps you the process of breaking sort of you down into your components is actually much easier than trying to answer the question, what's my purpose? So that's what we do. We break elements down, break elements of you down into, break you down into elements of you,
Mhm.
feed them into AI, and it says, hey, here's 10 options for a purpose statement of you based on what you put in here. What do you think of those? And then either you think good of them and you start to work with one or more of them, or you don't and you say, show me some more until you've got options that you like. That's the rough process.
Okay.
for discovering your purpose in this course.
So I have two questions from this. The first question is how mindfulness plays a role in this entire process, and secondly, some critics may argue that AI or something which is completely just a computer, a machine, how can it define my purpose without any human touch there? I mean, there might be some, friction there in understanding this entire process. So, how do you address that?
Well, as far as AI goes, all it's doing is making suggestions to you,
Hmm.
right? So we've got prompts that we've programmed in there that are specialized for whatever step you are at in the process. And those are, they're all like a prompt is like a computer code
Yeah.
where you've got to give instructions. So we give very detailed instructions and you just choose the prompt. You don't have to worry about any of that technical kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's looking, and this is what AI is really good at, looking at a bunch of things and figuring out what the common threads are.
Mm-hmm.
And in this course, that's what we ask AI to do. So we don't say, hey, here's Ian, what's his purpose? Because AI can't answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we take you through this process where you identify elements of you, many of which you're going to be discovering for the first time. And it's these elements that we feed into AI. So AI is not, it's not being all knowing or all seeing. It's not being, it's not playing God. Um, and it's not doing anything nefarious technologically. All it's looking for is common threads, trying to string them together in a purpose statement in 7 words or less, and then say to you, what do you think? How'd I do?
Mm.
And if your answer is, you did good, awesome. And if the answer is, not impressed, press the try again button. It'll give you a whole new list. And so it is whatever the theoretical concerns are about I can tell you it works fabulously. It is shocking how good it is at connecting the dots for you in ways that you can't see. And I don't remember your first question. Sorry.
Yeah. So, how does mindfulness play a role in this
Right.
entire journey?
I think there's two kinds of mindfulness. I think there's intentional mindfulness, and I think that there is unintentional.
Mm-hmm.
The intentional mindfulness we know, right? You have either always been, or at this point in your life, you choose to be mindful. And there are a whole bunch of practices that you do, but you are aware of yourself in mindfulness. I think it's Socrates who said, an unexamined life is not worth living. Well, when you're mindful, you're living an examined life. You're thinking about you the and how you relate to others and all of that sort of thing. Unintentional mindfulness is when you start down that introspective path. So you're actually starting to practice some of the elements of mindfulness without realizing what you're doing or without the intention of
Mm.
being mindful. So the example I'll give you is the prospect I was talking to when I was a coach. And
Mhm.
the one who said, I want to live a life of meaning and purpose, but he didn't know what his purpose was. Well, why was he searching for it? He's searching for it because the pandemic jolted his whole system
Yeah.
into unintentional mindfulness. And he started thinking more about himself. He started thinking about himself and his health and welfare, both
Mm.
emotional and physical, in a completely different way. Now, if you ask him, does he practice mindfulness? He might say no,
Yep.
but he is. So I think it's when you get into a mindful state, whether it's by intention or not, that you start thinking about these more, higher order, more esoteric issues about yourself. And so if you're in an intentional mindful state and you'll say, oh, something like purpose should be foundational in my life. That is a natural sort of conclusion of being in a mindful state, that you should know your purpose and that you should be purpose driven. And then you suffer from the problem that I discussed before, which is how the heck do you figure that out?
Yep.
That's a big question.
Yep. So, Ian, you emphasize the importance of defining purpose in 7 words or less. But what about the people who thrive on flexibility and prefer to keep their purpose fluid and ever evolving? Can too much structure limit personal growth?
So that is such a great question and such a natural question
Mhm.
because, when I talk about the idea of you defining your purpose in 7 words or less, it can sound like you're tying my hands, like
Yeah,
you're forcing me into this little 7 words or less box.
correct.
Really, what that 7 words or less does, imagine that, um, you know, you've got blinders and the blinders give you focus. When you've
Mhm.
got the 7 words or less, you now have a focus to your life. And what you realize is that inside that focus, there is an unlimited world of opportunity and possibility. But
Mm.
unlike the world before you had that focus, where there was also an unlimited source of possibility and opportunity, all of the ones inside your newfound focus are consistent with your beliefs, your wants, and your talents.
Mm.
Because your beliefs, wants, and talents are the components, they're the elements of purpose. So when you make a decision that is aligned with your purpose, and that's really what purpose is, it's a decision making tool. Oh,
Mm.
I have a decision to make here, big or small. My purpose is X. Is this consistent? Is this aligned with my purpose? Yes or no? And if your answer is yes, what you're really saying is that this is aligned with my beliefs, wants, and talents. Therefore, it's aligned with me. In the old world where you don't have that focus, you're essentially throwing spaghetti against the wall. An opportunity comes up, you say, oh, that looks cool. I'll try that. And you go down that path and you find out that path doesn't work for you.
Mm.
Well, even though on the surface it looked like it, your purpose will help you see through those rabbit holes and say, no, it's a shiny penny. I'm attracted to it. But when I compare it to my purpose, I realize that it's missing a whole bunch of stuff and is therefore, as shiny as it is, and as much as I want it, it's not aligned with my beliefs, wants, and talents. So you make the decision to forgo that because there's so much other stuff that you can now see that you couldn't see before that is aligned with your beliefs, wants, and talents.
Yep. Great, great answer, Ian. And in your work with individuals and organizations, how have you seen purpose positively impact emotional well being and overall happiness?
So I'll tell you two stories about that. And as I start into one, I'll forget the other. So one is about an actuarial firm, and the other is about a golf club.
Mhm.
So I'll start with the golf club. I was sitting in front of the board of directors of the golf club, and this is one of the most exclusive golf clubs in Toronto, which is a region that is absolutely flooded with golf clubs, exclusive golf clubs included. And he said to me, I'm in front of them pitching them, and he said to me, "What is it that you like, that inspires you about possibly getting us as a client? Is it that if you do a good job with us, you can go out and you can pitch other clubs?" And I just looked at him and I said, "No, that's not it at all. It's how I change you. It's how I change your mind. It's how, once you know the purpose of your organization, how fundamentally differently you think about it. And one of the things that changes in how you think about your company is how much more value you realize you have. You've been hiding so much value all these decades. But when you can articulate the one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable in 7 words or less, all of a sudden you are excited because you now have to take what is essentially a new organization to you because your perception of it is fundamentally different.
Mm.
But you know it's got huge value, so you're excited to take it out to market. So that's sort of at a high level how it changes how people think. Now, at the grassroots level, we did a blueprint for an actuarial firm. It was a mid-level actuarial firm competing against, all the international big boys and that sort of thing. And um, you know, when you're an actuary, you're buried in a lot of numbers. they We used to make the joke openly with them because they were really good about it that they were, as actuaries, they were our least sexy client. And I'm telling you this joke about actuaries because they actually told me. How do you know when an actuary is an extrovert?
Mm-hmm.
It's when they look at your shoes when they're talking to you rather than their own. And so, this is sort of the day-to-day life of an actuary. And so their uh, their purpose statement, we said to them, what is it that you really do? Why do you crunch those numbers? And as it turned out, it was to give their clients a greater degree of certainty about
Mm-hmm.
really important financial decisions that they had to make. So their purpose went from crunching numbers to give you business recommendations, which is what every actuary, management consulting, accountant does, to creating a greater sense of certainty.
Mm.
And the executive team that I created it with, they loved it. But I was talking when I wrote my book about blueprinting,
Mm-hmm.
I called the CEO to interview her. And she said, "Oh, yeah, a remarkable thing happened. When I walked around, they've got a cube farm there where, a lot of people work and they've got all their little cubicles and they've got their pictures of their families and stuff like that in the cubicles." And she said, "I could not believe how many people had printed out the expression, creating a greater degree of certainty, and then just pinning it up in their cubicle to remind them. Like, how many people out there who work in organizations are so inspired by, let's say their mission statement or their vision statement or whatever, that they're compelled to print it out and put it up in their cubicle as a constant reminder. These people weren't asked to do that. That just came naturally to them because they were so inspired by the purpose that the organization revealed. All of a sudden, these actuaries became sexy. Yeah, we're the knights in shining armor that come riding in to provide you with a greater degree of certainty. And that's a huge relief to the CEO and the CFO of their client organizations because that's what they want.
Exactly.
I want to be confident. I'm making decisions about huge chunks of money. Help me be more confident in that decision so I can stand in front of the board, so I can stand in front of shareholders, and I can powerfully explain why we're doing this. Greater
Wow.
degree of certainty.
Yeah. And that's really transformative. Really transformative.
It is,
Yeah. Thank
but
you
it
so much.
changes your mind.
Yes, yes, it
Yeah,
does. And the best part about this is it created a sense of belonging for all the employees working there towards the.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
Because the their purpose statement, creating a greater sense of certainty or creating a greater degree of certainty,
That's
was what they loved to do. This was not a new concept to them. We were not, through the blueprint process, coming up with something new. No, we were trying to capture what was already there. But the value of being able to articulate it is that you now know what it is and you can use it. You can leverage it. You can use it with intentionality. And it's the same thing as an individual. When you discover your purpose, you're going to have two reactions. You're going to say, "Oh, that's so exciting. That's me. That's me. That's really cool. I like the way that's expressed."
yep.
But your other reaction is going to be, "But I knew that." Well, you did because you've always been that, but you couldn't articulate it. And
Mm.
because you can't articulate it, you can't be intentional about putting it into action. My purpose statement is transforming confusion into clarity. That's at the front of my mind all the time. I can call that up and put that into action anytime I want because I know what it is.
Exactly. Wow. Wow, Ian. Lovely. So before we wrap up, if our listeners want to connect with you and seek your help in finding the purpose and then create a purpose driven life for themselves, how they can do that?
Okay. So the course, which is creating your blueprint for purpose, is at purposeu.co. So it's the word purpose with the letter U at the end, purpose as in Purpose University, right? Purposeu.co. And if you go there, you'll see a page that says launching soon. Enter your email, and we will send you a notification the moment the course is available. So please go to purposeu.co and sign up, and you'll be able to do the course. And by the way, for anyone who does the course who has
Mhm.
never used AI before, you're going to be a pro by the time you're done. And the price of the course is worth what you're going to learn about AI alone. And then, your purpose on top of that and leading a purpose filled life is just the icing on the cake.
Ah, lovely. Two birds with one stone. Lovely. Great. Great, Ian. We'll have all the details mentioned for our listeners. And Ian, thank you so much for this beautiful conversation today on mindful living. It was really an eye opening and such a transformative conversation. And for our listeners, whether you are looking to transform your business or your personal life, finding that clarity and focus can be a game changer. And remember, discovering your purpose doesn't have to be daunting. It can be as simple as 7 words, as Ian rightly said. And if Ian can help hundreds of businesses and individuals, there's no doubt you can too start your own journey towards a more purpose driven, fulfilling life too. So, Ian, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I loved this conversation. It was a lot of fun.
And to listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to the Mindful Living podcast. Be sure to check out Ian's resources to start blueprinting your own life. You can refer the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. Until next time, stay mindful and live with purpose.